The gun felt heavier than Nora remembered. She stood in the darkness outside the cabin, her breath forming small clouds in the December air. Snow fell in thick, silent sheets covering the porch steps her father had built 30 years ago. The wood creaked under her boots. The same creak, the same rhythm. Some things never changed, even when everything else had. Through the frosted window, she could see a faint glow. Orange, flickering. Someone had lit the fireplace. Her fingers tightened around the small revolver her father had left in the glove compartment of every car he owned. She hadn't thought about it in years, hadn't touched it since the day they cleared out his things after the funeral. But tonight, driving up the mountain alone, she'd remembered. She'd checked. It was still there, wrapped in an old chamois cloth, loaded. Nora pushed the door open slowly. The hinges didn't make a sound. Someone had oiled them recently. The main room was exactly as she remembered. Stone fireplace, worn leather couch, the antique clock on the mantel that never kept proper time. But there was a man kneeling by the hearth, his back to her. Dark hair, broad shoulders under a faded flannel shirt. He held something in his hands, something small, a photograph. "Don't move." Her voice came out steadier than she felt. She raised the gun, both hands gripping it the way her father had taught her when she was 16. The man froze. Then slowly he turned his head. His eyes found hers in the dim light. Dark eyes, tired eyes, the kind that had seen too much and stopped expecting better. "Who are you?" Nora's voice was sharp now. "Why do you have a picture of my family?" He didn't answer immediately. He looked at the photograph in his hands, then back at her. Something flickered across his face. Recognition, maybe. Or guilt. "I could ask you the same question," he said quietly. His voice was rough, like he hadn't used it in a while. "This is my cabin for the week. I have a reservation. This is my family's cabin. It's been in the Westfield family for 40 years. "I know." The way he said it made her finger hover closer to the trigger. He knew. He knew, and he'd come anyway. He'd broken in. He'd gone through their things. He'd put the picture down. Slowly. He set it on the hearth face down. Then he raised both hands, palms out. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said. "Didn't break in. I have a confirmation email. It's on my phone, but where's your phone?" "Jacket pocket, left side." "Take it out." 2 fingers, no sudden movements. He did. The phone screen lit up his face as he unlocked it, and for a moment Nora could see him clearly. Mid-30s maybe. Stubble along his jaw. Fine lines around his eyes. A face that had learned not to smile. He held up the screen. She saw the email. The booking app logo. The dates December 24th, 26. The address, 1847 Pinewood Trail, White Mountains, New Hampshire. Her cabin. That's impossible. She pulled out her own phone with her free hand, keeping the gun trained on him, and her confirmation email was there too. Same app, same dates, same address. "There's been a mistake," she said. "Yeah." He lowered the phone. "Looks like it." They stared at each other across the cabin. The fire crackled. Outside wind rattled the windows. The storm was getting worse. "You need to leave," Nora said. "I got here first. This is my family's property. Not according to the rental agreement. I don't care what the— Look." He stood up slowly, carefully. He was tall, taller than Preston had been. "It's Christmas Eve. There's a blizzard coming. The roads are already bad. I saw your car out front. You made it up here, but you won't make it back down. Not tonight." Nora knew he was right. The drive had been treacherous. Twice she'd nearly slid off the road. Her hands still ached from gripping the steering wheel. "So what do you suggest?" she asked. "We share the cabin. One night. Tomorrow the storm will pass, and we can sort this out." "Absolutely not. You have a better idea." She didn't. But the thought of spending the night with a stranger, a man she'd found going through her family's things, made her skin crawl. Preston had taught her not to trust. The divorce had driven the lesson home. "I need to see some ID," she said. He pulled out his wallet, slid out a driver's license, held it where she could see. Caleb Thorne, age 36, address in Portland, Maine. The photo showed the same face but younger, happier maybe, or at least less broken. "Why were you holding that picture?" Nora asked. Caleb looked back at the fireplace, at the photograph lying face down on the stone. Because I'm in it, he said. Nora lowered the gun slowly. Her mind raced, pulling at threads of memory. A photograph. Her family. A stranger who claimed to be in it. She tried to remember which photos had been on the mantel, which ones her mother had framed, which ones had been packed away after "show me," she said. Caleb picked up the photograph and held it out. Nora crossed the room close enough to take it far enough to keep distance between them. It was an old Polaroid, faded colors, Christmas 1998. She recognized it immediately. Her family in front of this cabin. Her father tall and broad-shouldered, one arm around her mother. Her mother beautiful in a green sweater, laughing at something off camera. And Nora herself, 12 years old, gap-toothed and grinning, holding a mug of hot chocolate. But there were others in the photo too. Another family, a man and woman she vaguely remembered. Their faces were familiar in the way old dreams are familiar, present once then lost. And two children, a girl maybe 8, and a teenage boy, gangly and awkward, wearing a Bruins jersey. "That's you," Nora said, pointing at the boy. "That's me. I don't remember you. You were 12. I was 18. We met once, maybe twice. I mostly stayed in my room and listened to music. Didn't talk much even then." Nora stared at the photo, at the two families' arms around each other, smiling like they'd known each other forever. Like they were safe, like nothing could touch them. "Who are they?" she asked, though part of her already knew. Part of her remembered. "My family," Caleb said quietly. "My parents, my sister Anna." The names came back like water through a cracked dam. The Thornes, her father's college roommate. They'd kept in touch over the years, met up for holidays sometimes. There had been plans that Christmas, a joint celebration. Two families coming together in the mountains. But the Thornes had never arrived. "The accident," Nora whispered. Caleb nodded. He took the photo from her hands and set it back on the mantel, this time facing out. "December 23rd, 1998, he said. "Black ice on Route 112. My dad tried to avoid another car. They went off the road. All 3 of them died on impact. I remember now." Nora's voice sounded far away even to herself. "My parents were devastated. My mother blamed herself. She'd invited your family here. She thought if she hadn't, it wasn't her fault. She never believed that. We never came back here after that year. Not until she got sick." Silence settled between them. The fire popped. Snow hissed against the windows. "Why weren't you with them?" Nora asked. Caleb's jaw tightened. "I was supposed to be. I had the flu. Fever, chills, the whole thing. I begged them not to leave me alone. But they didn't want to disappoint your family. So they went anyway." His voice was flat, emotionless. But Nora recognized that tone. She'd used it herself when talking about Preston. When pain ran so deep you had to bury it just to function. "And you're here now," she said. "Why?" "Same reason you are, probably." He looked at her for the first time since he'd started talking. Really looked at her. Closure, ending. Call it whatever you want. Nora felt the weight of the envelope in her coat pocket. Her mother's letter. The one she'd been carrying for 3 months but hadn't opened. The reason she'd driven 6 hours through a snowstorm on Christmas Eve. "I should go," she said, even though she knew she couldn't. "You won't make it to the main road." "I'll risk it." "Don't." His voice was firm now. "I've been watching the weather. This is going to be the worst storm in 20 years. If you go out there, you'll die." The word hung in the air between them. Die. So simple. So final. Nora looked at the door, at the snow piling up against it, at the darkness beyond the windows. She thought of her car already half buried, of the narrow mountain roads winding and treacherous even in daylight, of the gun in her hand cold and heavy. "One night," she said finally. "Tomorrow we figure this out." Agreed. She tucked the gun into her waistband. Caleb watched but said nothing. "I'm taking the bedroom upstairs," Nora said. "Fine, I'll take the couch." She grabbed her bag from where she dropped it by the door and headed for the stairs. But halfway up, she stopped, turned back. "That picture," she said. "How did you know it was there?" Caleb was adding wood to the fire. He didn't look up. "I didn't," he said. "I found it when I was cleaning the mantel. But when I saw it," he paused. "I guess I just needed to hold it for a while." Nora wanted to say something. wanted to apologize for pointing a gun at a grieving man, wanted to explain that she understood loss, that she carried it too. But the words wouldn't come. So she climbed the stairs and closed the door behind her. The bedroom was exactly as she remembered. Same quilt her grandmother had sewn, same view of the pine trees through the window, same smell of cedar and wood smoke. Nora set her bag on the bed and went to the window. The storm had intensified. She could barely see 10 feet through the swirling snow. She pulled out her phone, no signal. Of course, the cabin had always been spotty for cell service, and in weather like this, the towers would be overwhelmed or down entirely. She was trapped, with a stranger. On Christmas Eve, Nora sat on the bed and pulled the envelope from her pocket. The paper was soft from being carried. Her mother's handwriting on the front, "For Nora, read when you're ready." She'd found it 3 months ago, tucked in a box of her mother's things. By then, her mother had been dead for 2 years. The cancer had been swift and merciless. 3 months from diagnosis to funeral. Not enough time to say everything that needed to be said. Not enough time to prepare. Or maybe there was never enough time for that. Nora ran her finger along the seal. She'd come here to open it, to read her mother's last words in the place where her mother had been happiest. But now, with Caleb Thorne downstairs, a ghost from a Christmas her family had tried to forget, she wasn't sure she could. She tucked the letter back into her pocket and lay down on the bed, still fully clothed. Outside, the wind howled. The old cabin groaned and settled. And somewhere below, she could hear Caleb moving around a stranger in her family's home. Nora closed her eyes, but sleep wouldn't come. She must have dozed off eventually, because when she opened her eyes, the room was darker. The storm had knocked out the power. The only light came from the glow of the fireplace downstairs, seeping through the crack under the door. Nora checked her phone. 11:47 p.m. Almost midnight. Almost Christmas. She stood and went to the door, opening it just enough to peer down. Caleb was sitting on the couch, his back to her. He had a guitar in his hands. An old acoustic, probably one her father had left behind. He wasn't playing it, just holding it. His fingers rested on the strings, but he didn't strum. Nora watched him for a moment. There was something lonely about the way he sat, something broken, like he was waiting for something that would never come. She should go back to bed, should leave him alone. But her feet carried her down the stairs before she could think better of it. The bottom step creaked. Caleb turned. "Can't sleep." "Power's out." "Shit." "Yeah, happened about an hour ago. I checked the generator, but the fuel line's frozen. We'll have to wait until morning to fix it. So we have no heat. The fireplace will keep the main room warm enough. The upstairs will get cold, though." "Great." Nora hugged herself. She was still wearing her coat, but the chill was already seeping in. "You can bring your blankets down here," Caleb said. "I'll keep the fire going." "I'm fine." "You're shivering." "I said I'm fine." He held up both hands in surrender. "Your call." Nora moved closer to the fireplace, holding her hands out to the flames. The heat felt good, real, grounding. "That was my dad's guitar," she said, nodding at the instrument. "I figured. Sorry, I shouldn't have touched it." "It's okay. He would have wanted someone to play it." "I'm not playing it." "Why not?" Caleb set the guitar aside. "Because I don't play anymore." "You used to bum long time ago." Something in his voice told her not to push, so she didn't. Instead, she sat on the far end of the couch, leaving space between them. The fire crackled. Outside, the wind shrieked. "This is surreal," Nora said after a while. "What is being here? With you, someone I don't remember but who's connected to?" She gestured vaguely. "All of this. Life's strange that way." "That's one word for it." Caleb leaned back, his gaze on the fire. "Can I ask you something?" "Depends on the question." "Why did you really come here? It's not just about the cabin, is it?" Nora's hand went to her pocket, to the envelope. She considered lying, considered telling him it was none of his business. But something about the darkness, the storm, the strangeness of it all made her want to tell the truth. "My mother left me a letter," she said. "I've been carrying it for 3 months. I came here to read it." "And have you?" "Not yet." "Why not?" "Because once I read it, that's it. There's nothing left. No more words from her, no more run." She trailed off. "It's stupid." "It's not." They sat in silence. The clock on the mantel ticked toward midnight. What about you? Nora asked. Why are you here? Caleb was quiet for so long, she thought he wasn't going to answer. Then he said, I came to say goodbye. To the cabin. To everything. The way he said it sent a chill through her that had nothing to do with the cold. There was something final in his voice, something resigned. What do you mean? She asked, but before he could answer, the clock began to chime. 12 slow, heavy notes. Midnight, Christmas Day. When the last note faded, Caleb stood. Merry Christmas, Nora Westfield. How do you know my name? He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I've known who you were since I saw your car in the driveway. Westfield family cabin, Westfield license plate. Doesn't take a genius. You could have said something. Would it have changed anything? Probably not. Nora watched him add more wood to the fire. He moved with the ease of someone who'd done this 1,000 times, someone who knew his way around a hearth. Did you used to work construction? She asked. Carpentry. What? You're good with your hands. He glanced at her. That sounds like a compliment. It is. Then thank you. He sat back down this time a little closer. Not too close, but close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him. Close enough to see the scars on his hands. Working man's hands. Rough and calloused. Tell me about your life, Caleb said. The short version. Why? Because we're stuck here, and I'm curious. Nora hesitated. She wasn't good at talking about herself. Not anymore. Preston had accused her of being closed off, distant. He'd used it as an excuse for the affair. But Preston wasn't here, and Caleb Thorne was a stranger she'd never see again after tomorrow. I'm a lawyer, she said. Corporate law. I work in Boston. I live alone. I'm divorced. No kids. That's the short version. Recent divorce? 8 months. I'm sorry. Don't be. It was for the best. Was it? Nora looked at him sharply. You don't know anything about it. You're right, I don't. But you drove 6 hours through a blizzard to be alone on Christmas. Doesn't sound like someone who's okay with how things ended. He wasn't wrong, but admitting it felt like defeat. What about you? She asked, deflecting. What's your life look like? Messy, he said simply. I build furniture, mostly custom work. I live in Portland, but I travel a lot. No ties, no commitments. Sounds lonely. It is. The honesty in his voice surprised her. Most people dressed up their lives made them sound better than they were. But Caleb just laid it out, raw and unfiltered. Were you married? Nora asked. His jaw tightened. Yes. Divorced. Widowed. The word hit her like a punch, widowed. God, she was an idiot. I'm sorry, she said. I shouldn't have. It's okay, it was 3 years ago. Still, I'm sorry. Her name was Wren, Caleb said quietly. We were married for 2 years. She died in a car accident. Winter roads, black ice. Just like his family. Just like that Christmas in 1998. Jesus, Nora whispered. Yeah. Is that why you don't play guitar anymore? He looked at her, surprised. How did you lucky guess? Caleb rubbed his face with both hands. She used to love when I played. She'd sit right where you're sitting and just listen. After she died, I couldn't do it. Every time I picked up a guitar, I heard her voice. Felt her there. It was too much. Nora understood. She'd gotten rid of everything that reminded her of Preston. Not because she still loved him, but because she wanted to erase him from her life entirely. Pretend those 5 years had never happened. Do you still miss her? She asked. Every day. Do you think it gets easier? No, you just get better at carrying it. They fell into silence again. The fire burned low. Nora thought about her mother, about Preston, about all the ways people left you, whether they meant to or not. I should try to sleep, she said, though she didn't move. You can stay down here if you want. It's warmer. I don't want to impose. You're not. Nora looked at him, really looked at him, at the tired lines around his eyes, at the way he held himself like he was barely keeping it together, at the wedding ring he still wore even though his wife had been gone for 3 years. Okay, she said. I'll get my blankets. Nora made a makeshift bed on the other end of the couch. Caleb kept the fire going, adding logs every hour. They didn't talk much. Didn't need to. The storm raged outside, but inside there was a strange peace. At some point, Nora drifted off. She dreamed of her mother, of Christmas mornings when she was young, of the smell of cinnamon rolls baking, of her father's laugh deep and warm, of a time when everything felt safe. When she woke, pale gray light was filtering through the windows. The storm had passed, and Caleb was still there sitting by the fire staring into the flames like he was looking for something he'd lost. "Morning," Nora said, her voice rough with sleep. He turned. "Morning. Did you sleep?" "Not much." She sat up, pulling the blanket around her shoulders. Outside, the world was buried in white. 3 feet of snow, at least, maybe more. "We're snowed in," Caleb said, as if reading her thoughts. "For how long?" "Plows won't get up here for at least a day, maybe 2. It's Christmas. They'll focus on the main roads first." "So we're stuck." "Yeah." Nora should have been upset, should have been frustrated, but instead she felt relieved, like she'd been given a reprieve. A little more time before she had to go back to the real world, back to her empty apartment, back to her life. "I'll make coffee," she said, "if there's any." Pantry, top shelf. She stood, her muscles stiff from sleeping on the couch. As she passed Caleb, she noticed something. The guitar was back in his hands. His fingers rested on the strings. "Are you going to play?" she asked. He looked up at her. For the first time since she'd met him, he almost smiled. "Maybe," he said. And in that moment, with snow falling softly outside and a stranger beside her, Nora felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. The coffee was terrible. Nora sipped it anyway, standing by the kitchen window and watching the world turn white. The storm had left behind a landscape so pristine it looked unreal. Trees bent under the weight of snow. The road had disappeared entirely. Even the shed out back was just a vague shape in the drifts. "We're going to need to dig out the generator," Caleb said from behind her. She turned. He'd changed into a different flannel shirt, red and black this time, and his hair was damp. He must have used the last of the hot water. "Is there even a point?" Nora asked. "If we're snowed in for days, we'll need heat. The fireplace can only do so much." He moved to the pantry, pulling out cans and boxes. "And we need to ration food. I only brought enough for myself. I'm guessing you did the same." Nora's stomach sank. She'd packed light. A few protein bars, a box of crackers, some cheese that was probably frozen solid in her car by now. "We'll make it work," Caleb said, reading her expression. "But we need to be smart about it. You sound like you've done this before." "I have. Got snowed in at a work site in Vermont a few years back. 3 days before they could get to us." He set a can of soup on the counter. "You learn to stretch supplies." Nora watched him move through the kitchen with easy confidence, opening drawers he shouldn't know about, finding the can opener on the first try, like he'd been here before. "How do you know where everything is?" she asked. Caleb paused. "I spent some time here as a kid, before the accident. Your dad taught me how to fish into the stream out back. Your mom taught me how to make pancakes." He smiled faintly. "I still remember the recipe. She made the best pancakes." She did. Something shifted in Nora's chest. This man, this stranger, held memories of her parents that she'd forgotten, pieces of her own history that had been buried under years of grief and avoidance. "Will you tell me about them?" she asked. "My parents? What you remember?" Caleb looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "After we fixed the generator." The snow was deeper than it looked. They waded through it, Caleb leading the way with a shovel he had found in the shed. Nora followed her boots, sinking with each step. The cold bit at her face, but the sun was out now, bright and blinding against all that white. "Here." Caleb stopped at a small structure she'd completely missed, the generator housing buried under 3 feet of snow. They worked in silence, as shoveling in shifts. It was hard work, physical, real. Nora's muscles burned, but it felt good. Better than sitting in a courtroom or staring at a computer screen. Better than the numb routine her life had become. "You're stronger than you look," Caleb said after a while. "And is that a compliment or an insult?" "Compliment. Most people would have given up by now." "I don't give up." I noticed. When they finally cleared enough snow to access the generator, Caleb crouched down to inspect it. His hands moved with practiced efficiency, checking lines, testing connections. "Fuel line's definitely frozen," and he said, "but I can fix it, just need some tools and time." How much time? A few hours, maybe. Depends. Nora nodded. She brushed his snow off a fallen log and sat down watching him work. The forest was quiet except for the occasional branch dropping its load of snow. No cars, no voices, just wind and silence. Can I ask you something? Caleb said without looking up. Sure. The gun. Do you always carry it? Nora's hand went instinctively to her waistband, but the gun was back inside. She'd left it on the kitchen counter. No, she said. I haven't touched it in years. But last night driving up here alone, I don't know. I felt like I needed it. Were you scared? Of what? Being alone, being vulnerable. She wanted to say no, wanted to tell him that she wasn't afraid of anything, but that would be a lie. Yes, she admitted, I was scared. Caleb nodded like he understood. Fear makes sense, especially after someone breaks your trust. How did you mentioned a divorce in the way you looked at me last night. He glanced up. You weren't just surprised, you were terrified, like you thought I might hurt you. I didn't know you. You still don't. No, but I'm starting to. Something passed between them. An understanding, a recognition. Two people who'd been hurt learning to lower their guards just a little. For what it's worth, Caleb said, I'm not going to hurt you. I know. How? Nora thought about it. Because you're still wearing your wedding ring. Because you held my family's photo like it was precious. Because you could have been angry when I pointed a gun at you, but you weren't. You were just patient. Caleb looked down at his left hand, at the worn gold band. I should probably take this off. Why haven't you? Because it's the only thing I have left of her. The rawness in his voice made Nora's throat tight. She wanted to say something comforting, something helpful. But she knew from experience that sometimes there were no right words. So she just sat with him while he worked. And somehow that felt like enough. They were heading back to the cabin when Nora heard the engine. Caleb heard it too. He stopped listening. Then he cursed softly. What? Nora asked. Snowmobile. A moment later it appeared through the trees. A sheriff's department vehicle, bright yellow and black, churning through the snow. It pulled up beside them and a man in a thick parka climbed off. Nora Westfield. The voice was familiar. Nora squinted against the glare. Then her stomach dropped. Silas, deputy. Silas Park pulled off his helmet, grinning. He looked exactly like she remembered, dark hair, easy smile, the kind of face that belonged in a high school yearbook under most likely to succeed. They'd spent summers here as kids. He lived in town year-round. She'd had the world's most obvious crush on him when she was 14. Holy shit, Silas said, closing the distance between them. I thought that was your car. What are you doing up here? The roads are closed. I got here before the storm hit. Barely from the looks of it, he pulled her into a hug. Jesus, Nora, it's been, 10 years? 15? 15, wow. He stepped back, looking her over. You look good, really good. Nora felt her face flush. Thanks, you too. Silas's gaze shifted to Caleb, who stood a few feet away, shovel in hand. His expression was carefully neutral. And who's this? Silas asked. Caleb Thorne, Nora said. There was a mix-up with the rental. We're both staying at the cabin. Both, Silas's smile faded slightly. You two know each other. We're figuring it out, Caleb said evenly. The tension was immediate, subtle but there. Nora could feel it in the way Silas's shoulders squared, in the way Caleb's grip tightened on the shovel. Well, Silas said, turning back to Nora, I was doing a welfare check on all the cabins up here, making sure no one's stranded or hurt. You got enough food heat. We're managing, Nora said. Generators out, Caleb added. But I'm working on it. Silas frowned. You want me to call someone I can get a crew up here? I've got it. You sure, no offense, but this isn't exactly a DIY situation. I'm a carpenter. I know what I'm doing. The two men stared at each other. Nora resisted the urge to roll her eyes. Testosterone, even in the middle of a blizzard. Caleb's right, she said. We'll be fine, but thank you for checking. Silas didn't look convinced. You shouldn't be up here alone with... He caught himself. I mean, it's not safe. The storm could come back. I'm not alone, Nora said pointedly. Right, yeah, of course. Silas rubbed the back of his neck. Look, I'm staying at the station in town. If you need anything at all, just call, or I can come back tomorrow. Make sure you're okay. That's not necessary. I want to. There was something in his voice, something hopeful. Nora realized with a jolt that Silas wasn't just being a concerned deputy. He was interested in her. I'll be fine, she said gently, but I appreciate it. Silas hesitated like he wanted to say more. Then he nodded. Okay, but seriously, call if you need me. He handed her a card with his number. Radio's spotty up here, but my cell usually works. Got it. He climbed back onto the snowmobile, gave Caleb one last measuring look, and drove off. Nora watched him disappear into the trees. When she turned back, Caleb was already walking toward the cabin. Hey, she called. Wait up. He didn't stop. Nora hurried after him, her boots slipping on the packed snow. What's wrong? She asked when she caught up. Nothing. You're pissed. I'm not. Caleb, he spun around. You don't owe me an explanation, Nora. You know that guy. He obviously cares about you. That's fine. It's none of my business. You're right, it's not. But for the record, I haven't seen Silas in 15 years. He was a childhood friend. That's it. He didn't look at you like a friend. So what if he didn't? What does it matter to you? The question hung in the air. Caleb's jaw worked. Then he let out a long breath. It doesn't, he said finally. You're right, it doesn't matter. But the way he said it told Nora that it did. That somehow in the span of one night and one morning, she'd started to matter to him, and he'd started to matter to her. Come on, she said softly. Let's go inside, I'll make us lunch. Caleb nodded. They walked back to the cabin in silence, but the space between them felt different now. Charged, like something had shifted that neither of them wanted to name. Lunch was canned soup and stale crackers. They ate at the small kitchen table, not talking much. The awkwardness from earlier lingered, but Nora didn't know how to break it. Finally, Caleb spoke. I'm sorry for how I acted out there. You don't have to apologize. Yeah, I do. You're being generous letting me stay here. I have no right to get territorial. Is that what you were doing, getting territorial? He looked at her. I don't know what I was doing. I just know I didn't like the way he looked at you. How did he look at me? Like you were someone he'd lost and wanted back. Nora set down her spoon. And that bothered you because... Caleb didn't answer right away. He pushed his soup around with his spoon, his expression troubled. Because I know what it's like to lose someone, he said finally. And I wouldn't wish that on anyone. Not even a guy who looks at you like Silas does. It was a careful answer, safe, but Nora heard what he wasn't saying, that maybe, just maybe, he was starting to care, that maybe she wasn't the only one feeling this pull between them. I'm not going back to him, Nora said. If that's what you were worried about, there's nothing to go back to. Good. Good, I mean, Caleb clears his throat. It's good that you're not settling for someone from your past. You deserve more than that. What do I deserve? Someone who sees you, really sees you. The words hit her harder than she expected. Preston had never seen her. He'd seen the version of her he wanted, successful, polished, convenient. But he'd never seen the person underneath, the woman who was terrified of being left, who armored herself with control because vulnerability had only ever hurt her. What about you? Nora asked. What do you deserve? Nothing. Sure so. That's not true, isn't it? Caleb's voice was flat. My family died because I was selfish. Ren died because I let her go alone. I don't deserve happiness, Nora. I don't deserve peace. I've known that for a long time. Is that why you came here, to punish yourself? He didn't answer, but she saw the truth in his eyes. Caleb, she reached across the table, her hand hovering near his. You can't keep blaming yourself for things you couldn't control. Can I? No, you can't, because if you do, you're not living. You're just existing. Maybe that's all I deserve. Stop. Her voice was sharp now. Stop saying that. You deserve to be happy. You deserve to heal. You deserve... What do I deserve, Nora? To forget them, to move on like they never mattered. No, to honor them by living, by being the person they loved. Caleb pulled his hand away, stood up. For a moment, she thought he was going to walk out, but instead he just stood there, his back to her, his shoulders shaking. I can't, he whispered. I've tried. God, I've tried. but every time I think about moving forward, I feel like I'm leaving them behind. Nora stood and crossed to him. Slowly, carefully, she put her hand on his shoulder. They're not behind you, she said. They're with you, always, and I think they'd want you to be happy. Caleb turned. His eyes were red-rimmed. How do you know? Because anyone who loved you would want that. They stood there inches apart. Nora could feel the heat radiating from him, could see the war in his eyes, the part that wanted to believe her and the part that was too scared to try. Read the letter, Caleb said suddenly. What? Your mother's letter. Read it. Maybe she can tell you what I can't. Caleb, please. Nora hesitated. Then she pulled the envelope from her pocket. The paper felt impossibly fragile, like it might disintegrate if she held it too tight. Will you stay? She asked. While I read it, if you want me to? I do. They sat back down at the table. Nora's hands trembled as she broke the seal. Inside was a single sheet of paper covered in her mother's neat handwriting. She began to read. My dearest Nora, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry I won't be there for all the moments I wanted to see your future, your happiness, the life you'll build. But I need you to know something. I need you to know that the worst thing I ever did was teach you to be afraid. After the Thornes died, I closed myself off. I stopped inviting people in. I stopped believing that love was stronger than loss. And you watched me do that. You learned from me. I saw it happen year by year, and I hated myself for it. By the time I realized what I'd done, you were already building walls, already protecting yourself the way I'd protected myself. And then Richard happened, and those walls got higher, thicker. I know you think the divorce was your fault, that if you'd been different, softer, more open, he wouldn't have left. But sweetheart, that's not true. Richard left because he was too small to climb your walls, not because you built them too high. You need someone who will climb, someone who will sit on top of those walls with you until you are ready to come down. Someone who understands that protection isn't the same as prison. I met someone like that once, a young woman named Wren. She came to see me about a year before I died. She'd married a man who was drowning in guilt, James Thorne's son, Caleb. She wanted to know about the accident, about the family, about whether there was anything she could do to help him heal. I told her the truth that some wounds don't close. They just become part of who we are. But I also told her that love could be the salve, that the right person could make the burden lighter even if they couldn't take it away. Wren understood. She said, I can't fix him, but I can stand beside him while he fixes himself. And I thought that's what love should be. A few months later, she came back. She told me Caleb was doing better, that they were happy, that she felt like she'd found her purpose in helping him rediscover his. And then she died. I don't know if you'll ever meet Caleb Thorne. I don't know if life will bring you together. But if it does, I want you to remember what Wren taught me. Love isn't about fixing someone. It's about standing beside them while they heal themselves. This cabin was meant to be a gift for both of you. I changed my will before I died. The lawyer should have told you by now, but knowing you, you probably didn't read the paperwork. Half of this cabin belongs to Caleb. The other half belongs to you. I did this because I believe I have to believe that the two of you can help each other in ways no one else can. You both carry the weight of that Christmas. You both learn to hide from pain instead of facing it. But maybe together you can learn something different. Maybe together you can learn to be whole again. Don't be afraid, my darling. Don't build your walls so high that no one can reach you. Let someone in. Let yourself heal. And if you find Caleb, tell him something for me. His family didn't die because of him. They died because life is cruel and random and unfair. But their love for him wasn't. That was real. That was constant. And it doesn't end just because they're gone. I love you. I loved you from the moment I knew you existed, and I'll love you long after I'm dust. Be brave, Nora. Be open. Be alive. All my love, Mom. Nora's hands shook as she set the letter down. Tears streamed down her face, hot and unstoppable. She couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Caleb was beside her in an instant. Nora, look at me. She did. Through the blur of tears, she saw his face, saw the concern there, the care. She met Wren, Nora whispered. My mother met your wife. I know, I heard. She knew about you, about us. She left you half the cabin. I know. Caleb, Nora's voice broke. She thought we could help each other. Maybe she was right. Or maybe she was just a dying woman who wanted to believe in something. Does it matter? Nora wiped her eyes. What do you mean? Does it matter if she was right or wrong? We're here, together, against all odds. Maybe that's enough. Is it? Caleb reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. His touch was gentle, tentative, like he was afraid she might break. I don't know, he said honestly, but I'd like to find out. Nora's heart hammered in her chest. She knew what he was offering, what he was asking, and she knew that if she said yes, there was no going back. She'd be opening herself up to the possibility of pain, of loss, of all the things she'd spent years protecting herself from. But she'd also be opening herself up to the possibility of something else, something her mother had wanted for her. Healing. Okay, Nora said, let's find out. Caleb's expression softened. For the first time since she'd met him, he really smiled. Not the broken half smile, not the guarded expression, a real smile. And Nora felt something crack open inside her, something that had been locked away for so long she'd forgotten it was there. Hope. They spent the rest of the afternoon in a comfortable silence. Caleb fixed the generator while Nora organized the cabin. She found old photo albums in a closet, pictures of her parents young and happy, pictures of the Thornes, pictures of Christmas mornings and summer barbecues and lazy afternoons by the stream. She showed them to Caleb when he came back inside, his hands smudged with grease. I remember this, he said, pointing to a photo of him and Nora's father holding up a string of fish. He taught me how to gut them. I threw up twice. Nora laughed. He would have loved that. He did. He told me it meant I had a strong stomach, that I'd make a good doctor. Did you want to be a doctor? I wanted to be an architect, designing buildings, creating spaces where people could live and work and be happy. Caleb's expression darkened. But after my family died, I couldn't do it anymore. Couldn't design homes for other people when mine was gone. So you became a carpenter. I build things with my hands, simple things, tables, chairs, things that don't require a grand vision, things that won't break someone's heart if they don't work out. That sounds lonely. It is. Nora closed the album. What if you tried again, architecture? What if you gave yourself permission to dream big again? I don't know if I can. Why not? Because dreams require hope. And I haven't had that in a long time. Until now, Caleb met her eyes. Until now, he admitted. They sat together as the sun began to set, painting the snow outside in shades of pink and gold. The generator hummed to life, and with it the lights. Heat began to flow through the vents. The cabin came alive again. Thank you, Nora said, for fixing it. You're welcome. And for staying, for not running when things got heavy. I'm good at running, Caleb said. I've been doing it for 3 years, but maybe it's time I stopped. What changed? He looked at her. You. The word hung between them, heavy with meaning. Nora's pulse quickened. She wanted to say something, wanted to bridge the distance between them. But she was terrified. Terrified of wanting. Terrified of being wanted. I should make dinner, she said, standing abruptly. If Caleb was disappointed, he didn't show it. I'll help. They cooked together, moving around each other in the small kitchen. Pasta with canned sauce. Nothing fancy, but it felt domestic, comfortable, like they'd done this 100 times before. After dinner, they sat by the fire. Caleb picked up the guitar again. Will you play? Nora asked. I don't know if I remember how. Try. He strummed once. The sound was rough, out of tune. He adjusted the strings, tried again. This time it was better, a simple melody, slow and melancholy, and then he began to sing. His voice was rough, unpracticed, but the emotion in it was raw and real. A song about loss, about love, about learning to live again. Nora closed her eyes and listened, and for the first time in years, she let herself feel. When the song ended, she opened her eyes to find Caleb watching her. That was beautiful, she said. It was Wren's favorite. She had good taste. She did. Silence settled over them again. But it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that spoke louder than words. Can I ask you something? Nora said. Anything. If your mother's letter is right, if we're supposed to help each other heal, what does that look like? What do you need from me? Caleb thought for a long moment. Permission, he said finally. For what? To forgive myself, to believe that I'm allowed to be happy, to stop punishing myself for things I couldn't control. He paused. What about you? What do you need to trust? Nora said without hesitation. To trust that opening up won't destroy me. To trust that someone can see all my flaws and broken pieces and stay anyway. I can do that. Can you? I already am. Nora's breath caught. She looked at this man, this stranger who'd become something more in the span of a day. This man who carried his own grief but somehow had room for hers too. Caleb, she said softly, what are we doing? I don't know, but I think your mother would approve. Nora smiled despite herself. She would. She was a romantic. So was Wren. I wish I could have met her. I wish you could have too. She would have liked you. How do you know? Because I like you, and Wren always said I had terrible taste in people. Nora laughed, really laughed. It felt good, like shedding a skin she'd been wearing for too long. Your taste isn't that bad, she said. Thanks, I think. They sat together as the fire burned low. Outside, the stars came out bright and cold and perfect. And inside, two broken people began the slow tentative work of becoming whole. Later that night, Nora couldn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the day in her mind. Caleb's smile, his voice, the way he'd looked at her when she read her mother's letter. She should have been scared, should have been pulling back, rebuilding her walls. But instead, she felt alive, like she was waking up from a long, cold sleep. Nora got out of bed and padded downstairs in her socks. Caleb was asleep on the couch, his breathing deep and even. The firelight cast shadows across his face, softening the hard lines. She stood there for a moment, just watching him. This man who'd lost so much. This man who was trying so hard to find his way back. I see you, she whispered, too quiet for him to hear. I really see you. Then she went back upstairs, climbed into bed, and for the first time in months, she slept without nightmares. Morning came with the sound of snowplows in the distance. Nora woke to sunlight streaming through the bedroom window and the unmistakable rumble of heavy machinery. She sat up disoriented for a moment before remembering where she was. The cabin, Christmas, Caleb. She dressed quickly and went downstairs. Caleb was already up, standing by the window with a mug of coffee in his hands. They're clearing the main road, he said without turning around. We'll be able to leave by this afternoon. Something in Nora's chest tightened. Leave, of course. This had always been temporary. A strange interlude, two ships passing in a storm. Oh, she said. Good. Caleb turned to look at her. Oh, isn't it? He set down his mug. I don't know, you tell me. Nora crossed to the kitchen, busying herself with making coffee she didn't want. We both have lives to get back to, jobs, responsibilities. Right. And this, she gestured vaguely between them. This was just circumstance. We were thrown together. It doesn't mean anything. Doesn't it? Nora gripped the counter. Caleb, don't. Don't what? Don't make this harder than it needs to be. He crossed the room in 3 strides, stood close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him, close enough to see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. What if I want it to be hard? He said quietly. What if I don't want to go back to my life? What if I want to stay here and figure out what this is? We can't. Why not? Because, Nora's voice cracked, because I'm terrified. Because every time I've let someone in, they've hurt me. Because I don't know how to do this. Neither do I, but I want to try. Caleb, yesterday you asked me what I needed. I said permission to forgive myself, to be happy. He reached out his fingers, brushing her cheek. You gave me that. You looked at me, really looked at me, and you didn't see a broken man. You saw someone worth saving. You were always worth saving. Then let me save you too. Nora closed her eyes, felt his hand cup her face, felt the tears sliding down her cheeks. I'm so tired of being afraid, she whispered. I know. Me too. What if we try and it doesn't work? Then at least we tried. At least we didn't run. Nora opened her eyes, looked at this man who'd appeared in her life like a ghost from the past. This man who carried his own ghost but somehow had room for hers, too. Okay, she said. Okay. Caleb smiled, really smiled, and then he leaned in and kissed her. It was soft, tentative. A question more than a statement. Nora's hands found his shirt, holding on like he was the only solid thing in a shifting world. And for a moment, just a moment, everything else fell away. The fear, the doubt, the weight of all their broken pieces. There was just this, just them, just the possibility of something new. When they pulled apart, Caleb rested his forehead against hers. I don't want to leave, he said. Then don't. What about your life in Boston? I hate my job, and my life in Boston is just an empty apartment and a string of meaningless cases. I can practice law anywhere. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe my mother was right. Maybe this cabin is meant to be ours. Both of us. Maybe we're meant to figure out what that means. Caleb pulled back, searching her face. You're serious. I think I am. Nora, you can't upend your entire life for someone you just met. Why not you came here ready to end yours? The words hung into the air between them. Caleb's expression shuddered. How did you I'm a lawyer. I notice things. And yesterday when you talked about saying goodbye to everything, Nora took his hands. Caleb, were you planning to kill yourself? He didn't answer, but the truth was written all over his face. Jesus, Nora breathed. Caleb, I couldn't do it anymore, he said, his voice breaking. The guilt, the loneliness, waking up every day knowing I'd failed everyone I loved. I thought if I came here to the place where it all started, maybe I could finally let go. But you didn't. No, because you showed up with your gun and your walls and your broken heart. And for the first time in 3 years, he had a reason to stay. Nora pulled him close, wrapping her arms around him. He buried his face in her hair, his body shaking with silent sobs. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry you've been carrying this alone. I didn't think anyone would care if I was gone. I care. I care so much it scares me. They held each other as the morning light grew stronger, as the snowplows worked their way up the mountain, as the world outside slowly returned to normal. But inside the cabin, nothing would ever be normal again. And maybe that was okay. They were making breakfast when they heard the second engine. This one wasn't a snowplow. It was something smaller, faster. Caleb went to the window and cursed. What? Nora asked. SUV, black Range Rover. It's pulling into the driveway. Nora's stomach dropped. She knew only one person who drove a car like that. No, she breathed. No, no, no. But when the door opened and a man in an expensive parka stepped out, her worst fear was confirmed. Vaughn, Preston's best friend, his college roommate, his partner in crime, the man who'd covered for Preston during the affair, the man who'd looked Nora in the eye and lied for months. What the hell is he doing here? Caleb asked. I don't know. Nora's hands were shaking. I haven't spoken to him since the divorce. Vaughn climbed the porch steps and knocked. 3 sharp raps. Nora wanted to hide, wanted to pretend she wasn't home. But Vaughn had already seen her car. He knew she was here. She opened the door. Nora. Vaughn's smile was practiced. Corporate. The kind of smile that sold million-dollar deals and hid a multitude of sins. Thank God, Preston's been worried sick. What are you doing here, Vaughn? Can I come in? It's freezing out here. No, Vaughn's smile faltered. Nora, come on. Don't be like that. I drove all the way up here to check on you. I didn't ask you to. Preston did. He called me yesterday when he couldn't reach you. He was worried you might do something rash. Rash, Nora's voice was ice. Like what, kill myself because my cheating ex-husband is concerned about me. He didn't mean it like that. He just... Vaughn's gaze shifted past her to Caleb, who'd come to stand behind her. Who's this none of your business? Nora, you can't just disappear and shack up with some random guy. Careful, Caleb said quietly. His voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. You don't know what you're talking about. Vaughn's eyes narrowed. And you are someone who actually gives a damn about her, which is more than I can say for you or your friend. Look, I don't know who you think you are, but Vaughn, Nora's voice cut through the tension. Why are you really here? Vaughn had the grace to look uncomfortable. Preston needs you to sign some papers for the condo. He wants to sell it, but he needs your signature. He can wait. He can't, actually. He's got a buyer lined up, and he needs the money. For what? Vaughn hesitated. And in that hesitation, Nora saw the truth. He's getting married, isn't he? She said flatly. Nora. Isn't he, yes, next month. To Melissa. Melissa, the client, the woman Preston had sworn was just a business associate, the woman he'd chosen over 5 years of marriage. Nora waited for the pain to hit, for the anger, for the crushing sense of betrayal all over again. But it didn't come. Instead, she felt nothing. Just a vague sense of relief that she'd escaped a life with a man who'd never really seen her. Tell Preston I'll have my lawyer send the documents, she said. Now get off my property. Nora, don't be unreasonable. This is my property. Half of it, anyway. And I'm telling you to leave. Half? Vaughn looked confused. What are you talking about? My mother left this cabin to me and Caleb, 50-50. We're co-owners, which means you're trespassing. Vaughn's expression hardened. Fine, but you're making a mistake. Preston is moving on. He's happy. And you're up here in the middle of nowhere with some... He waved a dismissive hand at Caleb. Some stranger. You think that's going to... I don't know, Nora said. But at least it's real, which is more than I ever had with Preston. Vaughn shook his head. You always were cold, Nora. Preston said you couldn't open up, that you kept everything locked inside. I guess he was right. The words should have hurt, should have cut deep, but Nora just smiled. You're right, she said. I was cold. I did lock everything inside, but that was because I was trying to survive a marriage to a man who didn't love me, who used me for convenience and status, and then threw me away when someone better came along. That's not... I'm done, Vaughn. I'm done with Preston. I'm done with people like you who enable him. I'm done apologizing for protecting myself. So do me a favor and tell Preston I said congratulations. I hope Melissa knows what she's getting into. Nora shut the door in his face. For a moment, she just stood there, her heart pounding. Then she started to laugh. A wild, slightly hysterical laugh that bubbled up from somewhere deep inside. Nora! Caleb's hand was on her shoulder. Are you okay? I'm perfect, she said, spinning to face him. I'm absolutely perfect. Did you see his face? Did you see? The laughter turned to tears, huge gasping sobs that shook her whole body. Caleb caught her as her legs gave out, holding her up while she cried. I've got you, he murmured. I've got you. He's marrying her, Nora choked out. He's marrying her, and I don't even care. I don't care, Caleb. What's wrong with me? Nothing. There's nothing wrong with you. Then why don't I care? Why aren't I angry? Why don't I want him back? Because you never loved him. Not really. You loved the idea of him, the safety, the control, but it was never real. Nora pulled back, staring at him through her tears. How do you know that? Because I did the same thing. After my family died, I married Wren because she was safe, because she made me feel normal. And I did love her. God, I loved her. But part of me was always holding back, always protecting myself. And I think she knew that. I think she knew I could never give her all of me because I was too busy trying to survive. Do you think she resented you for it? No, I think she understood, but I resent myself for it, for not being the husband she deserved. Caleb, I'm telling you this because I don't want to make the same mistake with you. I don't want to hold back. I don't want to protect myself at your expense. I want to give you everything, even if it terrifies me. Nora's breath caught. That terrifies me too. I know. So what do? We try anyway. Outside, they heard Vaughn's SUV start up and drive away. The sound of it fading down the mountain felt like a door closing, an ending, or maybe a beginning. Nora needed to get out of the cabin. The walls felt too close, the air too thick. She grabbed her coat and boots and headed for the door. Where are you going? Caleb asked. For a walk. I need to clear my head. Want company? I need to be alone for a bit. Caleb looked like he wanted to argue, but he just nodded. Don't go too far. The snow's deep. I'll be careful. She stepped out into the blinding white. The sun was high now, turning the snow into a field of diamonds. It was beautiful, painful, too bright to look at directly. Nora walked without thinking about direction, just putting one foot in front of the other. crunching through the pristine drifts, leaving a trail behind her. She thought about Preston, about the years she'd wasted trying to be what he wanted, about the way she'd shrunk herself down, made herself smaller, less demanding, less alive. She thought about her mother, about the letter, about Wren, who'd understood that love wasn't about fixing someone, but standing beside them while they healed. She thought about Caleb, about the way he looked at her, the way he listened, the way he made her feel seen. And she thought about herself, about the woman she'd become, hard, closed, afraid. But maybe that woman didn't have to exist anymore. Maybe she could let her go. Maybe she could become someone new. Nora stopped walking, looked around. She'd gone farther than she'd intended. The cabin was a distant shape behind her. The forest pressed in on all sides. And then she heard it. A crack, sharp and sudden. The ice beneath her feet gave way. She didn't have time to scream, didn't have time to react. One moment she was standing on solid ground, the next she was plunging into freezing water. The stream, the one her father used to fish in, it ran under the snow, hidden and treacherous. The cold was a shock, a knife to the chest. Nora gasped, inhaling water, choking. Her heavy coat dragged her down. She thrashed, trying to find purchase, but there was nothing. Just dark water and ice and panic. She was going to die. She was going to die alone in the woods, and Caleb would never know. Would never know that she'd started to believe, that she'd started to hope. Her vision started to dim, and then there were hands. Strong hands grabbing her coat, hauling her up. She broke the surface, gasping, coughing. "I've got you," Caleb's voice, rough with fear. "I've got you, hold on." He pulled her onto solid ground, stripped off her wet coat, wrapped her in his own. She was shaking so hard she couldn't speak, couldn't think. "We need to get you back to the cabin," Caleb said. "Can you walk?" Nora tried. Her legs gave out. Caleb scooped her up without hesitation, carried her through the snow like she weighed nothing. Nora buried her face in his neck, breathing in the scent of him. Wood smoke and pine and something indefinably him. "How did you find me?" she managed through chattering teeth. "I followed your tracks. And when I heard the ice break," his voice caught. "God, Nora. When I heard that sound, I thought, I'm okay. You're not okay. You almost died. But I didn't, because you saved me. I was too late. I was almost too late. But you weren't." They reached the cabin. Caleb kicked the door open and carried her straight to the fireplace. He set her down gently, then started stripping off her wet clothes with practiced efficiency. "I can do it," Nora protested weakly. "You're hypothermic. Let me help." She was too cold to argue, too tired. She let him peel away the layers down to her underwear. Then he wrapped her in blankets, built up the fire, and sat beside her, rubbing warmth back into her hands. "You scared the hell out of me," he said. "I scared myself." "Why did you go out there alone?" "I needed to think." "About what?" "About everything. About Preston, about you, about whether I'm brave enough to do this. And I fell through the ice before I figured it out." Caleb let out a shaky laugh. "Of course you did." They sat in silence for a while. Nora's shaking slowly subsided. The feeling returned to her fingers and toes, and with it came a clarity she hadn't expected. "I want to try," she said suddenly. Caleb looked at her. "Try what? This, us. I want to try." "Nora, I know it's crazy. I know we've only known each other for 2 days, but I feel more alive right now than I have in years, and that's because of you. You're hypothermic. You're not thinking clearly. I'm thinking perfectly clearly, for the first time in a long time." Nora shifted to face him fully. "Caleb, I spent 5 years with a man who never really saw me, who took and gave nothing back. And in 2 days, you've seen more of me than he did in 5 years. You've made me feel more, want more, be more. You're giving me too much credit. I'm giving you exactly the right amount." She took his hands. "I don't know what this is going to look like. I don't know if we'll make it work. But I know I want to try. I know I'm tired of being afraid. I know I'm tired of running from anything that might hurt me. What if I hurt you? Then you hurt me, and I'll survive, just like I survived Preston, just like I survived my mother dying, just like I survived everything else. But at least I'll have tried. At least I'll have been brave enough to want something real. Caleb searched her face. Whatever he saw there must have convinced him because he pulled her close and kissed her. Harder this time, more certain. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. I don't deserve you, he said. Yes, you do, and I'm going to keep telling you that until you believe it. That might take a while. Good thing we have time. That night they made a plan. Nora would go back to Boston, tie on loose ends, quit her job or request a transfer to a smaller firm closer to New Hampshire, sell her apartment, sign Preston's papers, and cut that final thread. Caleb would go back to Portland, finish his existing contracts, start looking for work he actually cared about, maybe even think about going back to school, about architecture, about building something that mattered. And in 3 months, they'd meet back at the cabin, their cabin, and they'd decide what came next. 3 months is a long time, Nora said. They were lying on the couch, tangled together under a pile of blankets. The fire had burned down to embers. It'll go fast, Caleb said. What if you change your mind? I won't. How do you know? Because for the first time in 3 years, I actually want to be alive. I want to wake up in the morning. I want to see what happens next. And that's because of you. What if I change up my mind? Will you? Nora thought about it, about her old life waiting for her in Boston, about the safety of routine, about the comfort of walls and control, and knowing exactly what each day would bring. And then she thought about this, about Caleb, about possibility, about the terrifying, exhilarating feeling of not knowing what came next, but wanting it anyway. No, she said, I won't change my mind. Then we'll be okay. They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, two broken people who'd found each other in the midst of a storm and decided to be brave. The morning they left was clear and cold. The snowplows had done their work, the roads were passable, and the rest of the world was waiting. Nora packed her car while Caleb cleaned the cabin. They moved around each other quietly, both lost in their own thoughts. When everything was ready, they stood on the porch looking out at the snow-covered mountains. This is harder than I thought it would be, Nora admitted. Yeah, 3 months. 3 months. And then we figure it out. Nora turned to face him. I'm going to miss you. I'm going to miss you too. Caleb. Yeah. Thank you for saving me in more ways than one. He cupped her face in his hands, kissed her slowly, thoroughly, like he was memorizing the feel of her. Thank you for giving me a reason to save myself, he said. They stood there for a long moment, neither wanting to be the first to let go. Finally, Nora stepped back. I should go before I lose my nerve. Call me when you get to Boston. I will. She climbed into her car, started the engine, looked back one last time to see Caleb standing on the porch, one hand raised in farewell. Nora put the car in gear and drove down the mountain. But this time she wasn't running away. She was running towards something, toward a future she couldn't quite see yet, but believed in anyway. 3 months seemed impossibly long. But as Nora navigated the winding roads back to civilization, she realized something. She wasn't afraid anymore. Not of the future, not of pain, not of opening herself up to someone who might hurt her, because she'd already survived the worst. And she'd come out the other side stronger, braver, more alive. And in 3 months, she'd come back to this cabin, to Caleb, and they'd begin the next chapter of their story. Not a fairy tale ending, not a guarantee of happily ever after, just a beginning, a choice, a leap of faith, and sometimes that was enough. 3 months later, Nora pulled up to the cabin on a Saturday in late March. The snow had mostly melted. Green was starting to push through the brown. The stream ran clear and loud, no longer hidden under ice. Caleb's truck was already in the driveway. Nora's heart hammered as she climbed the porch steps. She'd talked to him every day for 3 months. Video calls, text messages, long conversations late at night when neither of them could sleep. But being here, seeing him in person felt different, more real, more terrifying. She opened the door. Caleb was in the kitchen cooking. He turned when he heard her, and the smile that spread across his face made her knees weak. You came, he said. Did you think I wouldn't? I hoped, but I wasn't sure. Nora crossed the room and wrapped her arms around him. He smelled like onions and garlic and home. I quit my job, she said. Yeah, I'm opening my own practice, family law, helping people who can't afford big corporate lawyers. That's amazing. I sold the apartment. I'm staying with a friend while I look for a place closer to here. Or you could stay here. Nora pulled back to look at him. Here. It's half yours, and I've been thinking. He ran a hand through his hair, suddenly nervous. I enrolled in a graduate program. Architecture, online classes mostly, but I'll need to be on campus a few weeks each semester. Caleb, that's incredible. I figured if I'm going to design homes, I should start with this one. Fix it up, make it livable year-round. Make it ours. Ours. The words settled over her like a blanket. Warm, safe, right. I'd like that, Nora said. Yeah, yeah. Caleb grinned. Then he picked her up and spun her around, and Nora laughed, really laughed for what felt like the first time in forever. When he set her down, she kissed him, long and deep and full of promise. I love you, she said when they came up for air. Caleb's eyes widened. You do, I know it's fast, I know it's crazy, but I do. It's not crazy. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. And I love you too. I think I have since the moment you pointed a gun at me. Nora laughed. You have terrible taste. The worst. They stood there in the kitchen, wrapped around each other, as the afternoon light slanted through the windows. Outside, spring was coming. Inside, something new was beginning. Not perfect, not without challenges, but real and honest, and theirs. So what happens now? Nora asked. Now, Caleb smiled. Now we live, we build, we heal. We figure it out as we're. No guarantees, no guarantees, just us, and this cabin, and whatever comes next. Nora looked around at the place that had brought them together. The place where two broken people had found each other in a storm and decided to be brave. I can work with that, she said. And as they stood there together, planning their future in the home they'd both inherited from the people who'd loved them most or realized something. Her mother had been right. They needed each other, not to fix each other, not to complete each other, but to stand beside each other while they healed themselves. And that was the best kind of love there was.